The National Assembly has transmitted 44 constitution review bills to the 36 state houses of assembly for further legislative work. The 44 bills were passed by the Senate and House of Representatives on the 1st of March. Only the 44 bills were passed out of 68 considered by the lawmakers in the constitution amendment process. Now, the legislations were further presented to the clerks of the 36 state houses of assembly. Now, during the voting, lawmakers rejected all the 5 gender bills that sought to promote more opportunities for women in political parties, governance, and the society at large, triggering protests from over 200 women groups across the country, which later led to some amendments by the lawmakers. Now, the Nigerian Federal Legislature had voted to deny citizenship to the foreign-born husband of a Nigerian woman and the ability to take the indigenship of their husband's state after 5 years of being together. They also voted against 35% affirmative action in party administration and leadership, as well as specific seats for women in the National Assembly, an action that has been met with wide condemnation from women across the country. However, the House of Reps agreed to reconsider 3 of the bills. It is not clear if the Senate will reconsider the bills maybe sometime soon. And then there were several other bills that were rejected, including the FCT mayoralty issue, the calls for ministerial appointments in the FCT, and then the issues of independent candidacy, the issues of including VAT on the exclusive list and all of that. And I'm glad to say that Dr. Sam Amadi, who is a Rise News analyst and an associate professor of law, joins me to take a look at this. Very quickly, Dr. Sam Amadi, tell us about some of these things. I mean, you must have heard the debate we were having with Panya Baba here, who is a lawyer on the issues concerning FCT, and then you have all these other rejections. What do we do? Because some of these rejections were really studied by some of the technical committees put in place by the Senate and House of Reps, of which he belonged, and they deemed these items, 68 of them, very good to go, but only 44 crossed.
Well, that's why it's called legislation. I mean, the assumption, the people make the mistake that legislation is a product of political bargaining. You know, so essentially, it's not that it's pure rationality. It doesn't mean that all the good things get enacted into law. So it's a function of the interests of different legislators and the interests of those who are pushing the constituency. So oftentimes we don't see a lot of interest advocacy from the constituency. Take, for example, the gender bills. Most of those bills are not civil society NGO. They constitute some kind of massive change of cultural, institutional bias against women. So you're going to enlist traditional rulers, enlist religious rulers, influencers, and make it organic. It grows from the people, so that it's a dynamic that they can't reject. And again, it has some political cost and political benefit. So oftentimes, people don't understand that, look, legislators bargain and they put in law not what is good or bad necessarily, but what helps their constituency and what somebody owns, somebody who can penalize, somebody who can discipline, who can mobilize. So if, for example, they see Nigerian women, all of them, NCWC, all the women groups in Nigeria sign up to something. They see their own wives being part of that. Those who are in churches see their women leaders there. That gives credibility. So that this civil society tunnel vision, that once NDI or once USAID or once the World Bank signs out something and a few eggheads sit in a room, I was called to say, look, help us, push these things. But it didn't even come back to us. So you can see that the movement was narrow and too westernized, in the sense that this is like a human rights movement, typical sense. This should have been a mass movement of Nigerian people, because what they're asking for makes sense. So if you look at all these bills that were rejected, some were rejected because they're too politically expensive for those who are empowered to accept. Some were rejected because maybe they didn't think it was rational. Some were rejected because those who are pushing them have no political weight. Yeah, but so when you look at very critical bills like independent candidacy, it was rejected. A lot of the people build a lot of consensus around these issues, and you talk about, for example, not only these women issues. You talk about some of the critical things that wanted to be put on the exclusive list, and why some other ones were being pushed to the concurrent list and all of that. When you look at some of these issues, do you think that these bills, for example, that have been sent to the state houses of assembly, I mean the ones that succeeded, for example,
are they going to pass? Because that's where the fear now lies, actually. For example, local government autonomy now. Do you think that the governors will be able to?
No, the state assemblies are basically lame duck of the highest order. So anything that is going to upset the balance of power between the state governors and the other institutions will not sell. We've seen where autonomy to state assemblies was rejected in previous amendments. For example, yes, the legislators themselves voted against their own autonomy. Now, so what I see, we have, for example, independent candidacy may sell because it's actually fashionable. It doesn't weaken the governors. The political cost of setting a governor from an independent position is actually difficult. In fact, it helps the governor really well to lose so much money to go and run as independent. So I think it may sell because it's not politically upsetting.
Too controversial,
and doesn't threaten their power base. Local government autonomy may not sell because the governors continue to see local government as part of their, control sphere of influence, and of course their meal ticket. Again, they also think, some people think that maybe we should have a state federalism, just like in the US, many places, or federal local government. That the notion of a tripartite federation where you have state, federal, and local independent, that's actually part of the Tinubu's legal challenge to federal government under Obasanjo. So controversial issues. Things like, for example, this issue around moving some item from the federal to the state. We have we have two dual things like, for example, electricity. Many states are eager to have access to it, but again, who has advantage now? Some of the northern houses, I would presume, may not sign off to some of those changes because the essential things that, look, the notion that the federal government helps, federalizing resource distribution and allocation, helps states that are less competitive. So Lagos, Rivers, and others who presumably in the south think they are more competitive, they can generate their wealth, will be more aligned to getting the federal government off many things. But states that are dependent on handouts largely, states that feel that they are competitively less positioned now, will be the ones that will canvass for more federalization. So you're going to see a divide. Maybe we'll look at the data when it comes out across regional zones.
Yeah. So what sort of lobbying is needed at the moment? And I've also heard you talking about the issues of the FCT raised by Panya the other time, the rejection of mayoralty, and then what's it called, ministerial appointments for FCT.
No, I think those things should be routine. You see, the constitution says it should be treated as if it was a state. My point is that FCT cannot be a state, but it has to look like a state, just like Washington DC. So maybe a mayor is good, maybe something that allows.
Yeah, but there's still a call for statehood even in the.
Yeah, but the problem with statehood is if you say they're calling for statehood, so it's a political divisive issue. The Democrats want a statehood because that will help in their number. The Republicans don't want. Now again, back to FCT, but things like minister is critical because the idea of ministerial is to represent people. So the people of FCT, indigenous people of FCT, will have represented them in the cabinet. The issue around, of course, some people have argued for maybe 2 or extra territorial or extra House of Assembly. That's possible. And then maybe instead of a minister of FCT, you get somebody that they elect. The people elect the man who manages this huge bureaucracy. So the idea that the person who runs FCT is an appointee of a president and the party
okay, well, I'm being told my time is almost up, but I won't go without asking you very quickly, what do you think is the place of lobbying in both for rejected bills and the bills that have now been sent to the states?
I think this is a time now to lobby. Again, the critical missing point is the parties. Party position should be clear. If, for example, PDP wants this, then his House of Assembly will likely align. The problem is that the parties are totally bereft of ideas. So you don't even know whether APC supports the rejection of women bill, for example. So if all these bills, APC controls the National Assembly, the Senate, the House of Reps, and the President, and they are not passing the bill, should it be a vote of no confidence in APC? So the parties need to be the ones driving.
Well, as Nigerians are going into the polls for general election, we'll see whether they'll punish some of these parties for having rejected some of these bills or reward them for some of the bills passed. Well, we must thank you so much, Dr. Sam Amadi, who's a Rise News analyst and associate professor of law, for helping us to understand all of this. That's how it's been for this edition of the Arise interview. Do join us again tomorrow. From me and the entire team here in Abuja. Goodbye and thank you for watching. I'm Somna Sandhu.